And joining us live now via video call is Unite National Secretary Stuart Davies. Mr. Davies, thanks very much for joining us. First off, let's look to the positive. How long has this been in the works and how big a step forward is it for you?
Well, good evening. It's a very long-standing campaign issue of Unite. It's been something that we've been pushing for a number of years, and it is well and long overdue. It's been a manifesto commitment of the GSLP Liberals as well. So, we are very, very pleased that we finally see that this is entered into legislation. We called upon government once again on May Day of last year to actually give workers in the private sector this gift of being able to actually have a union to collectively bargain on their behalf if they so choose. So it's a very, very positive step forward. As you quite rightly say, it's not just about union recognition, but it's about other important rights that are enshrined upon union members and workers in general within Gibraltar. So from that perspective, it's very positive. We do have some reservations around some of the omissions and changes to the legislation, and those are areas that we will want to be exploring further with government to try and amend and rectify those issues.
We will ask you about what you feel are the omissions in a moment, but before then, let's talk about the fact that this news comes at the same time as that of a strike by Morrison's union and follows a threat by Morrison's not to recognise Unite. We're talking about union recognition. What are your thoughts there?
Well, I think it draws into stark contrast, exactly why this legislation is so important, because not only does it enable the union to actually go into areas where we've previously not been recognised and where members wish for that union to collectively bargain on their behalf. What it also does is it protects our existing agreements in terms of those private sector employers, because the current situation would be that if an employer so chose, because the majority of our agreements are voluntary agreements, if an employer chose, they could actually give notice on that agreement. And if we couldn't negotiate a new agreement with them, then the only mechanism and the only vehicle that was available to us previously to get recognition would be to take industrial action. So this legislation would enable us, where an employer refuses to recognise a union, or where an employer is making steps to de-recognise a union, we're able to use this legislation as a vehicle to actually ensure that our members continue to be represented collectively by the union, and we can bargain collectively for their terms and conditions of employment. So it's incredibly important in terms of new agreements, but also protecting existing agreements as well.
Okay, looking to the future, you must expect some sort of influx of new workers hoping to unionise. Where do you expect workers to come from? Which industries or corporations do you feel have been resisting unions so far?
Well, there's a large number of workplaces and sectors that are non-unionised, and the difficulty we've had previously is that when we've spoken to members and prospective members about collective bargaining, and we've had the conversation around what steps we could take, as I just articulated, the difficulty was that if the employer didn't voluntarily recognise, then the only mechanism available to us was industrial action, and most of our members don't want to take action unless they actually there's no other option available to them. So now that we've got this legislation, we can start that dialogue with members. We can start to build up membership within those areas that they want the union to collectively bargain. And as far as we're concerned, no part of the private sector is out of bounds. So we will be engaging with our existing members, engaging with prospective members around where they want to pursue union recognition and where they want their terms and conditions to be collectively bargained by the union.
And finally, Mr. Davies, if you will, you said that the work is not done yet. I don't think you'll ever feel it is. What priorities has the union moving forward? What else do you want?
Well, the biggest concern that we have is in terms of the draft legislation, there was a whole section that protected union representatives from detriment by their employer for participating in union activities. So there was a whole section around protecting those from discrimination for participating in trade union activities. That section has been removed completely from the legislation when you compare the command paper to the regulations as we see it. And we think that that's a major black hole in the regulations. It's one that we will be making representations to government, because that protection for trade union representatives to undertake their activities unhindered and without detriment is important, not just in the private sector, but the public sector as well. So that will be a priority for us, along with a number of others.
Mr. Davies, thanks for joining us. Stuart Davies, Unite's National Secretary.